God.
And now let's get to finally the epilogue, right? A father twice old, over. I'm gonna make this quick because, for one thing, this epilogue runs way longer than it should, in my opinion. But there's a lot that happens. So I'm just gonna run through quickly, right? So you get somewhat perfunctory, voiceover narration with Silas, and he's talking to his son and telling him that he's destined for great things, and you see in the montage, which I believe you saw most of in the original cut. So it's like, okay, and the music really makes this work, in my opinion, right? Then in the next scene, well, they actually kind of change up the real introduction to Lex Luthor in the film, right? Well, he escapes Arkham, but they do the whole thing.
Scene. It's
Right.
roughly the same, yeah.
But I believe the dialogue between him and Deathstroke is different.
A different,
because they don't mention Legion of Doom or anything like that, right? It's just, you know what I mean, eye for an eye. You know what I mean? You want to get revenge on Batman? Well, I could tell you who he is. He's Bruce Wayne. It's like, oh, okay. I'm gonna stay with you. Let me get some of that champagne, basically, and that's the scene, right? Then we get another nightmare scene. But here's the thing.
Different.
Because they hinted at it in the trailer, I was like, okay, well, eventually we were going to get it anyway. So I was watching it, right? And this of course is where we see Joker for the first time, right?
Yeah, we get to that too.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Which by the way, I learned after the fact was Jared Leto did his scenes over Zoom. I'm like, all right, well,
Of course he did.
I'll watch the behind the scenes and see how it's done, because that kind of awesome though. But yeah, basically it's how they set it up basically is that it's the same parademons and take it over, right? And you see Batman the way how he looked in the original Nightmare. You see Flash wearing the armor that he had in BVS as well. You see our old Deathstroke, which is kind of weird. I thought, well, I guess when that story makes itself clear, you'll understand why he made that alliance. Did not expect to see Mera there, but I just felt like they just threw her in because they just kind of wanted it to have more of a reason to be in the film, even though, in my opinion, she could have just stayed in Atlantis, but whatever. Let's see if I missed anybody. And Cyborg is there too, right? So we learned from Mera basically that Darkseid, well, we assume it was him, right? Killed Aquaman, right? And then afterwards, well, Joker's there sitting on the car with the SWAT suit, body armor on, and
all the badges.
and he's talking about, well, just basically taunting Batman, right? And typical thing, Batman hates Joker. Batman threw an F-bomb at him, and I was like, okay. And he thought Joker.
Funny enough, I thought the two of them had good enough chemistry,
Yes.
Yeah,
that wasn't so bad.
I like that conversation.
And I'm still upset that Ben Affleck never got a chance to do his Batman movie. Like, look, this whole thing has been a hot mess. It's a garbage fire, and a train wreck at the same time. A garbage train wreck, whatever. And it's a real shame he didn't get a chance to do his movie, Drew.
Yeah, right. But basically here, Joker talk about how, well, you could save Lois, right? Which was a nice little hint. And how, the boy wonder died, right? But then Batman coming and saying, well, the last thing Harley Quinn told me, before she died in my arms is that, she wants to see you dead. And Joker's like, oh, okay. And then he just pulls out a Joker card and he issues a truce, right? And they're all like, okay, well, we need to go because, it's getting dark and all that kind of stuff. And then
Superman
up and you realize, it's Superman. And it's like, okay, we continuing
wonderful.
from 4 with but at least in this case here, folks, he's not killing people with eye beams, right? Which was one thing that I really hated from BVS, right?
Okay,
so just to finish up the scene here. So yeah, Bruce suddenly wakes up though. So yeah, it's once again is one of those premonition dream things, which I assume the movies, the DCU is gonna properly explain with Justice League 2 whenever it comes out. And then this goes back to what I was saying earlier. Martian Manhunter shows up, but I like that at first you're thinking, it's Superman, so we're gonna get this little conversation scene, and then they're gonna set up, it's gonna be this on the alliance, right?
Right.
But actually it's Martian Manhunter
that does nothing.
Right. In this
here's a medal for you, Chewbacca.
Yeah.
Right. What's like, let me finish, please. In his true form, right? And he's talk about there's a war coming, and he's there to help, and he basically he flies off, and then the movie ends, right? Now I felt if you really wanted to have General Hardass be Martian Manhunter, they could have just just basically have him show up to talk to Lewis in the apartment as opposed to Martha. And then you just see him show up at the door, knock. He's like, "Oh, I'm General. This. And then in the end, he reveals himself to be Martian Manhunter. The fanboys and fangirls just on themselves, and then he flies away. As opposed to just having him be in this true form, just to remind people, oh wait, that guy who you probably didn't know because you never read any of the DC comics. Yeah, this is who he is, and this is why he's seeing him and stuff like that. And it ends right, and it's here's
a dumb thing. Here's a little dumb thing I hated about that. One. He won't call himself Martian Manhunter off the bat.
No.
I know. Yeah.
Second thing.
It's John Jones. Sorry, it's John Jones.
Yeah, the whole thing does come across as contrived and lame. As I forget who it is. I think it's Twitter or Reddit or somebody make the joke. Who are you? And then somebody just type in Ray Skywalker. It said like. Why is that whole scene? That whole scene is so cringe. That whole scene with him is so cringe, and it's like. Look, I like Harry Lennox, great actor. But boy, you really look like you just push yourself just to get a role as a Martian Manhunter movie or something like that. And like he just put himself into this because like this is such an afterthought. It's so lame.
Yeah.
Well, only Zack Snyder would put you through 4 hours of a movie where the characters are like fighting to save the world, succeed in saving the world, and then give you a scene where you see the world if they hadn't saved it, and then kind of throw in this other thing as an afterthought.
Yeah, because Go ahead.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Claude.
Because I swear to God, I swear to God, if it wasn't for, again, my conspiracy theory that he put in the Martian Manhunter thing because someone came up with a theory and he was like, that's actually really good. I don't believe him when he said he planned it from the whole time. Because I swear, if left to his own devices, he would have just ended the movie at the nightmare scene because fuck all of us, I guess, for wanting any kind of happy ending to this.
Right, no, but what confusing about that? So my attitude was, wait, it's a second nightmare that happens, or they avoided the first one? Or it gonna happen anyway? Because what I thought, I thought the movie was gonna do is, all of that stuff with Joker, we were going to see that and then get to see Flash come back in time and tell him the message. That's what Zack Snyder was going to show. And so you extend the night to a sequence, you get to see him fighting with Deathstroke and him fighting with Cyborg and him fighting with Joker, and we get to see all of that action, right? And then Flash goes back in time to warn him in BVS. That's what I thought. Not this like a tacked on end sequence that don't make any sense. Like what? Why? Waste of time.
It confused me because I thought, okay, so are they saying that when Flash ran and saved and reversed everything that is some type of parallel thing that happened in that
I have no clue. It's very confusing.
It's very confusing.
Because the way our Joker talk is that, you keep trying a lot of time travel and it's failing. Like Batman didn't just try time travel once. He tried multiple times to save people. Or something like that. But it's super confusing still. It's super confusing. And it again, absolutely atrocious storytelling and world building by Zack Snyder. Absolutely atrocious. You don't get showmanship at all from that level, Jared.
Literally, he said that the only he didn't say it was the only reason, but he said the main reason he wanted to do this nightmare scene was he said before this era of the DCEU comes to a close, which he himself admitting that it's over, he wanted to have Jared Leto's Joker interact with Ben Affleck's Batman. So the whole scene. That's the only reason the scene exists, which is why it has no internal logic and doesn't hold up and doesn't fit with
which is a shame because I do like the dialogue. I do like the interaction in that scene. Even that little bit of shaking of the hand after he threatens Joker, and then Joker is like, "Oh, you had me there for a second." Right. Because it was a moment of true fear on Joker's part that Batman would actually kill him at some point in time. Right. So I like that little moment, but it doesn't fit with anything else. I don't understand it. It had me confused as to, is it a parallel Earth? Is it what is it? What happened?
I can make sense. None of it made sense.
Well, I don't know. I must be watching a different movie because, to be honest with you, because before that happens, I remember somebody, I can't remember who it was, but somebody was talking about the idea that I think it might have been Darkseid himself, that even though the boom tubes themselves are destroyed, yes, Darkseid, even though the boom tubes themselves are destroyed, we will do the old-fashioned way now. We will go to that planet, wherever it is. So I figured, because from that, it goes into, if I'm not mistaken, it goes into the nightmare sequence. So I was saying, okay, so this is now, and again, this could have probably been, I think, I'm not sure, but I feel like it could have probably been as simple as putting a little line that says sometime in the future, or some, like some one of those little tropey things where if he's moving from, he's going to eventually reach to the Earth. That's the whole plan here. He's coming to the Earth. He's going to set up base here and turn this place into Apocalypse to get his anti-life equation.
Right.
He's going to obviously turn Superman into his own puppet.
I get all of that, So, I get all of that.
Like, well, no, I just said, because, like, for me, I saw that entire sequence. It would have been fun for Barry to have gone back so that we have a little bit more of a connection outside of, oh, this is the costume that he has there. But for me, it was fine. The heights for me was, and I'll just wrap it up here for me, is the heights for me was watching that conversation between those two, and they're talking about, adult things and reach arounds and all of that. It sort of reminds me of this book that was done by Grant Morrison, Arkham Asylum, A Serious Place on Serious Earth, where Joker is dressed in a nightie or a slip or something like that, and he's greeting Batman at the door. And there's this sort of idea that Joker, as much as he wants to kill him, he very much loves him, and there's a kind of dynamic that goes on between the two. So seeing the two of them talk about, coming to a truce and, basically hurting each other, that for me right around with that. But outside of that, I don't know. I didn't really catch a vibes with that, not to be honest.
Right. So here's why that's confusing, because it undermines the working implication and framing from Batman v Superman. Right. Mm-hmm. Remember, he comes back to tell him it was Lois all along. It was Lois. So what exactly did they change? Did that not inspire Batman to form the Justice League in the first place? You see what I'm trying to say? So that he has another nightmare at the end of this to hint at something else going forward. So it was the point of the nightmare in the first place, for the first time. It doesn't. It's multiple timelines still. This is what I'm trying to say now. You see how confusing it was?
Is it a case of an? I mean, this is us speculating here, but is it a case of inevitability? So, like, question once said in one of the animated stuff that in any universe, Lex Luthor is Lex Luthor. So is it so much that it's an inevitability that whatever universe, or no matter how things change, Superman will still become this overlord that destroys everything?
No, but the point is that the way they frame it. All I'm saying is that this is how it's framed. I know you got some nerd on YouTube go have some 3-hour video to explain that bullshit, right? Yeah. But my point is that how it is framed in Batman v Superman is that, all right, the reason why he forms the Justice League is because of that nightmare sequence that was set up, hence change in time. It was supposed to be a kind of weird, avoid time loop kind of thing, right? But they make it, well, no, Darkseid invasion is inevitable, and they just delay the inevitable, like some kind of Terminator thing. All right, kind of, but undermine the framing from before. It's like, why form the Justice League at all?
In a weird way, I'm thinking, now that you're talking, I'm thinking the 2017 version where Bruce goes for the big guns. So Clark comes back to life and totally almost kills him and everything like that. And he says, I'm going for the big guns. And the big guns turns out to be Lois. And when he sees Lois, takes her and goes away. So that could probably,
Right, because that's how I thought that was resolved. Is that they brought back him. He came back as this weird zombie version, and he didn't know the secret because he didn't know Clark was that close to Lois, right? Mm-hmm. But because Flash told him it was Lois, okay, I'm gonna blah 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 blah, right? I don't know.
Mm-hmm. Right. In closing, this part though is the epilogue, right? This is my epilogue because it's my podcast, so my epilogue, right? So. In advance, right? I want you all to just listen to the way it is out to see, right? And then we'll get to individual, your views and ratings, right? Cause I'm gonna do rating one time, right? I just want you all to understand where I'm coming from, and I want us to be friends when this is all done, right? But understand what I'm trying to say, yeah? Understand what I'm saying here, right? Mm-hmm. As you could tell, ladies and gents, you know what I mean? This is source material that has been, adored for decades and decades and decades, right? So the moment when you come in now, at a time when, the MCU come and say basically, yeah, this can be done. We could make superhero films and they could make tons of money and they could like just inspire people and change the world, right? When you come with something as beloved as the DC, comic book characters, right? You have to come in with a level of knowledge. You have to know where these characters come from, their ideologies, and all these things, right? So when you come in different because you just want to be different and be your own thing, you have to be really, really, really careful though. And this is unfortunately what didn't play out well with Zack Snyder himself, right? Clearly, this was someone who just didn't get the source material, and the mere fact that he was just blatant about it though just makes it even more egregious. But he still did. He still made his films, right? That's the thing. And for me, what I got out of this experience was that I was looking at it more of the title, more of the filmmaker himself, Zack Snyder himself. So yes, we could spend days ripping apart the narrative and why this don't work and why this doesn't, why this contradict what happened in the other films, or why this not part of why this goes against what we know with the DC characters. I get that. But while I was watching this film, all 4 hours of this, right, while making notes on the side, I was looking at the name in front of Justice League, Zack Snyder, Dread. And for me watching this, Dread, it was like this is what his over was leading up to anyway, Dread. But how I also saw it too is like, okay, this was the film that he wanted to make. All right, fine. It's problematic as all hell. It's fragmented. So narratively, it's all over the place, though, but still, it's his vision. His vision, right? Now, love it or hate it, you have to kind of respect that. You have to kind of respect the fact that, yes, this is what he wanted to make. I feel that he had some afterthoughts and stuff like that, as we mentioned before, like with that final scenes and all that kind of stuff, but still, this is what he wanted to make, right? So, for me, personally, right, I actually dug the effort that was put into trying to take what was really a poorly put together 2-hour film that we saw in 2017 and really expanded in such a way where you kind of sat down and watched and try to give a shit now, which for the most part I did, right? I actually dug the emotion, I actually dug the heart that was put into it. Not a lot of it, mind you, but it's there. You know what I mean? It was an effort that I haven't seen in BVS. I haven't even seen it in Man of Steel. It was like Zack Snyder basically saying, okay, this is like the last film I'm gonna make, so I'm gonna actually try to put some effort into making this thing work, right? And while it does not work mainly because the foundation was just messed up from the ground up anyway, the man did the best that he could do. Now, this is not me defending the guy and saying, oh, you should let this film slide and whatnot. It's by more seeing it as this was the film he wanted to make back in 2017. So once again, because I didn't rewatch the original cut, I just looked at it like if I was seeing this thing for the first time, like if I sat down in cinemas in 2017 and saw this thing, right? That being said, I am glad this thing is out so that we could just move on with our lives. I am not going to be one of those that are going to spend months, not just dissecting the film and seeing what work and what don't work, but I am not going to side with no releases Snyder Cut fanboys and say, well, this is why the show is better than Avengers, you know what I mean? Because, it have articles come out right now saying, well, what this show did better than what the MCU did. I am not even going to waste my time with that. It's just, this film is complete. Zack Snyder can move on with his life. He could continue making films that you will hate. He will continue making films that you will love or you will enjoy, you'll find meh. So I am just glad that it's over. And seeing it here, it feels complete. It really feels like, okay, this is cathartic. This is, this is how it is, right? For better or for worse. So in closing now, I have to rate it now in terms of just that mere fact, right? Like in terms of, okay, how it contradicts itself and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, I'm not even gonna waste my time with that. I know it may feel kind of contradictory coming from me. Be like, I should be ripping this show apart. I should be ripping it apart and seeing why this don't work and why that don't work and why this still goes against what Superman is about and all that kind of stuff, right? But I couldn't help but just see it as this is just his vision finalized, finally, right? So, charitably, I'm gonna give this a lighter, decent 4 out of 5. Charitably. But this is not a film that I am going to be obsessing over. Maybe I might watch it over again before year's end. Maybe I don't see this showing up as a best of at all. I don't even see it showing up as a worst of at all. But I am treating it as what it is. I'm treating it more like if this came out on Blu-ray. And like say for example, Francis Ford Coppola's Apocalypse Now. You know what I mean, or Ridley Scott's Blade Runner. Like the movie came out back then, and here's the version you didn't see in theaters. You see it. You saw what worked and what didn't work, and you understand. Listen to what I'm saying. You understand what was left on the cutting room floor and why. You understand that. You see it here. So this is the version. This is the forward version that we didn't get to see. Now we see it, and now we understand what was cut out and why things were, colorized and just changed up the way they did to please a wider audience now for the 2017 version. I saw it. That's it. Let me move on with my life. And that's my thoughts on the film. So last thing, I'll just say quick thing. Julian Neves, who unfortunately could make it here. At the time it's recorded, I actually sent out my review of it. And yeah, pretty much what I said here kind of stands out, right? So yes, I am very charitable. I was very fair to the film. I enjoyed it. For me, it was just kind of fascinating to see, mainly because in this time of like streaming services where you could sit down and binge a whole series of a show or a whole season, hear this guy come out and say, here's what, you're going to sit down at home and you're going to watch my 4-hour cut of a movie that I didn't get to see because of circumstances. There you go. So for me, I was just like fascinated by that just seeing that play out, right? So to me, it's a really interesting film though in terms of that context though. But yeah, once again though, in terms of just capturing the feel of what made these DC characters work, yeah, it's a huge misfire. But in terms of like a directorial vision and something that we won't see again, I have to give credit where credit is due, man. That's just me, my opinion. Alice, final thoughts and rating, honest final thoughts and rating on Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Well, listening to what you just said, Matt, it really is Zack Snyder's vision. So like you said, we could spend hours, days, months, years picking apart what didn't suit us. And like opinions, everybody's gonna have an opinion. And it'll be never ending to infinity.
But just to be clear, sorry to cut you, just to be clear.
Yeah.
Have your opinion. If you don't like the film, you don't like the film. If you don't like aspects of it, just hold on to that. Feel free to say that. Don't act as if, because critics gave it 4 stars, whatever it is, you have to like it. No, if you don't like it, you don't like it. That's fine. I would say, sorry for using this word, that's art, right?
Mm-hmm. No, true. It's all. Yeah. That's why they say beauty is in the eye of the beholder. It's up for interpretation. So, like I said, while I wasn't happy with a lot of stuff in it, I was happy with a lot of other interpretations and representations. So I am giving it a 7, even though it seemed as I complained a lot, but I had to admit that I enjoyed most of it. And it was something that I've never experienced before in my life in terms of having a superhero movie released and I could watch it from my living room and it was like 4 hours long. And like, it is enjoyable and it is something that I have never experienced before.
Right.
So whereas I didn't get the format I liked, again, this is somebody else's vision. Take from it what you will.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm not saying to the rest of you guys, you all had to agree with me, but just
that was
how I looked at it, right? All right, Tracy, quick final thoughts and rating.
Okay, well, first of all, I just want to let you all know that while we were having this, word has dropped that there will be the coming soon to HBO Max, Zack Snyder's Justice League Justice is Grey. So if you liked it in color, get ready for it in black and white.
No!
So that is coming. Justice is Grey, kids. Here's my thing. And it's funny that Matthew talks about the idea of streaming services because I love being, you guys know this, I love being in the cinema. I love randomly dressing up for no reason to go to the cinema to see something in the cinema. I live for it. I do feel like if Zack was to take a year or 2 or 5 or 7 and come back around to the streaming service, it could be a perfect place for him to have his non-canonical, like in the way of Star Wars Legends, his own space to do things. So like if there was to be, because God knows I don't really need it, but if there was to be a Snyder verse something with all this amount of jokey scene, put it on HBO Max. Let who want to see it see it. Those who don't want to see it, let it live on that as a streaming service and continue doing your things. That could be a place where that is concerned. For me, I've had this strange thing that has happened to me over the years where I stop, like I look at things and I'm like, did I enjoy it? Do I really want to go down this fight? What do I want to get out? What do I want to get? Excuse me. What do I want to get out of this movie? And so for me, there are things within 2017's Justice League that I was like, good call. Good call, for example, where Arthur's sitting down on Diana's lasso of truth and starts spilling his guts. That for me was something that was a bit of light humor that I liked, that I thought could have been implanted into this. That didn't land. For me, going into this 2021 version, I was one of those people who legitimately was like, be over, be done with, let's move on. And I found myself actually liking it. I will throw this out. I did not particularly care for the soundtrack. There are maybe 2 or 3 songs that I quite like, and I like the idea of the siren Wonder Woman thing.
Yeah,
in preparation for this, what I did was, because I have the 2017 Justice League album, and I was listening to Danny Elfman's music, and I won't go too far into it, but like Hero's theme and the Logo's theme, just those 2 alone, and I'm like, that's what I need out of a superhero movie, especially with somebody like Superman involved. I just had this experience in an office once where I had to jump in and rewrite and redo somebody else's campaign, and so the idea of just stepping in and doing all of that for me was just like, okay, I understand what the studio wanted. So the idea that Zack was actually being able to not necessarily have the control of the studio overhead so that he could be able to do his long ass 4-hour movie, I give him props for that. I actually quite enjoyed it. If I'm being really honest, I saw it twice. I saw it on Thursday. I saw it in the office.
Oh, I was trying to rewatch it for this review here, but time.
I saw it in the office, and then because I need to see something while I work, and I saw it again, and I was like, yes, okay, this is cool. So for me, my experience with this, I want to give this. It's really hilarious for me, but I want to give this a B. I want to give this a B. I get that it's, there's a thought that I have in here about it being opera, and basically opera is not something that everybody enjoys, and opera can be bloody long. And it's the same thing with Zack's Justice League. I don't know if I'm going to necessarily go and sit down and watch Justice is Grey. I don't know if I need a black and white your version of it. I don't know if I need to see release the Snyder Universe or any of the other dumbness that will come out of this fan base. But for what it is, I give it a B. I'm fine with it for the most part. There are things that annoy me, but for the most part, yeah, okay.
So, Ricardo, tell me how wrong I am. Go ahead. It's all cool. We still gonna do Bears Beats and Millie. Go on, tell me how wrong I am. Go on.
Right. Okay. So yeah. As I say, yeah. From a creative standpoint, I do like that he got the chance to finish his vision. Blah blah blah. However, this wasn't particularly interesting or engaging to me to say, wow, I really needed this. But look, if we got this back in 2017 and it was like a 2-parter kind of something, it would have been fine. It would have been like, oh, okay, we got that. And it would have been a little clearer, and we would have moved on, right? And maybe things would have played out. But I was pretty underwhelmed with this. Much like how Civil War cleansed my palate of BVS, Falcon and Winter Soldier cleansed my palate of this. I just immediately forgot about it. The only reason I remember it is because I had to talk about it here today. And I was just I was so underwhelmed with the whole thing, to be frank. It wasn't engaging. I was like, all right, that's that, and they're still here, and yeah, let's look at it as just an exercise of anthropology. It's like, okay, in cinema history, this happened. That's it. Moving on. Yeah, at best, I'll give it like
that's
a 5%.
how I approach it too. Actually, to be honest, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. But I couldn't get into it. I don't really care. I would say, if anything, I was still kind of upset that Ben Affleck didn't really get a fair shot at his Batman. And then in retrospect, it's so frustrating watching this incredible squandering of a good DC universe being possibly built up. What was the name of the Dark Side War movie thing?
Justice League Dark?
Yeah.
Right, yeah, Apocalypse War. Yeah, that's basically what we got again. Like, it was that. It was like, okay, that's what we should have gotten, blah, blah, blah. And I move on. And I start to say that all of the, again, DC with the terrible showmanship, all of the pop culture gas was burnt out. I didn't care at this point. I was like, okay, we talk about it. We go and talk about it again. Yeah, you mentioned when the Justice is Great thing. So what? You have a black and white version, noir version. I don't want to watch that. Like, I don't care. Moving on. And that's basically it. I just so sick of this garbage. This is an incredibly exhausting scenario. It's exhausting to talk to people about it. It's exhausting to talk to people against and for it. It's just frustrating to watch. It's a shame that we couldn't get a decent world build up here, because you had potential. Man of Steel had potential. Batman v Superman was a colossal failure, and they just blew it. He just blew it and then never recover. And that is what the most frustrating part about the whole thing, is that you had multitude of chances to pivot. You had this, you could have pivoted from that. You could have taken another idea and pivot, and every point they failing. And it just was underwhelming to me. 5 out of 10 at best, because it's like, yeah, better than the Whedon cut, kind of. But like, it had a bunch of stuff that Whedon had in his version that I liked, like the Save One moment, but whatever. Moving on. 5 out of 10, it done. Enough.
Yeah. All right. Summer, last thoughts and rating on Zack Snyder's Justice League.
Well, basically, you guys covered a lot of it. Matthew, Tracy, Alicia, and Ricardo as well. There's so much stuff here to unpack, and we could spend eternity just picking everything apart. So treating it from the perspective of, I've never seen the first Justice League movie. I'm sitting in IMAX and I'm watching this. I would have come out of it feeling like how I felt when I initially saw Man of Steel. I would have been satisfied with what I saw,
Until you jump in that car and you drive home.
And I started to drive and I started to give it thought. But there's a lot here that, as flawed with the dialogue and all the different stuff, the missteps in world building, all of that, I can still appreciate what was done. I can appreciate the character development that was added to characters like Cyborg and that sort of thing. I could appreciate the fight sequences and what it did to enhance certain moments, like the battle between the Amazons and Steppenwolf. There's a lot here that I wouldn't pretend that while watching it, I was like, okay, that works for me, because in the original, I just didn't get anything out of it. So overall, it's a 7 out of 10 for me. It's a score that I'm positive is going to change with time, but just treating it as if this is all I've ever seen. This is my first viewing, and just giving credence to the fact that I'm happy. I'm always happy when a director gets to see their vision, whatever that vision may be, fulfilled without the studio stepping on their toes. So yeah, for that, I give it a 7 out of 10, but I'm so glad this is over, and I just want to move on. I want new stuff. I want new stories, better stories. And I want DC to stop holding on to this nonsense and just let us move forward.
Yeah. Last but not least, man, save the best for last.
So, Lord.
CC, final quick thoughts on the film and, your overall rating.
You pinned me out to be the bad guy. So, how to articulate this in a
don't change your view. Don't change your views because of us, or because of what
no, absolutely.
Please.
The only reason
it's your view.
The only reason I can't rate this lower than Batman vs Superman is I already gave Batman vs Superman 1 out of 10, and that's the same I'm giving this absolute crap. No, I'm not changing shit. No, here's the thing. I have been tap dancing around this issue since the review started, and now I'm going to address it. I have two major problems with the way people are talking about this film. One, people are saying, well, at least it's better than Justice League. Okay, yeah. No, that's a very low bar. Of course it's better than Justice League. This is competently made. It's not a Frankenstein abomination. It's not like two movies fused like with the teleporter from The Fly. This is an actual cohesive film. So of course it's better than Justice League. That's like saying, well, at least it's better than The Room. Well, of course it's better than The Room. The Room is incompetent filmmaking from one end to the other. And then the second thing that I hate is all of the false praise of the director and the director's vision and all of this other stuff that I've been seeing on the internet for weeks. It's part of the cult of Zack Snyder. Because what generally happens is Zack Snyder is compared to Marvel. And the way everyone complains about Marvel is, oh, it's no matter who's in the director's chair, it's like they have to follow a format. They have to answer to a studio. They can't express themselves, which tells me they've never watched a Marvel movie because they find directors who find room within the Marvel system to operate and do their thing. So the fact that Snyder is elevated to some sort of grandiose director vision, because I watched the movie and I'm like, this is clearly made by someone who sees himself as an artist, and he is making his artist statement, and he is like he's strutting like a peacock, waving his style in all of our faces, and every second of it is torture as a result. I can't it gets praised because the internet. And it started ironic. It started a few years back when like Patrick Willems and Lindsay Ellis were kind of jokingly talking about, and they originally intended this to take down auteur theory, right? Like the idea that like the director is the most important author of a work of film. They took like their whole thing was, haha, well, if you use auteur theory, then like Michael Bay is an auteur, haha. But then this led to this weird resurgence in popular auteur theory on the like again like auteur theory, but not just like auteur theory, but like this weird popular auteurism kind of is what I've been calling it, and it's like, and so you get the fact that Snyder, and here's the thing, I feel like Snyder gets a lot of false praise because, well, at least he has a style, right? At least he has a style, he has a vision, and this movie is full of creative, artistic decisions that don't make any sense, that don't add to they don't add to a film that understands its source material. They add up to a film that's just full of the director's style, and it's obnoxious. It's absolutely obnoxious. Like, there are plenty of filmmakers who are adapting a licensed property and find the room between the property and their style. So elevating a filmmaker simply for the sake of his style, the fact that auteur theory praises filmmakers who actively clash with the material they're adapting. Hang on, no, I've got it right here. In her essay, Circles and Squares, Pauline Kael in the 1960s, and I quote, "Their ideal auteur is the man who signs a long-term contract, directs any script that's handed to him, and expresses himself by shoving bits of style up the crevasses of the plot." So, no, I will not evaluate Zack Snyder's Snyder Cut in light of Justice League, and I will not evaluate it. I will evaluate it as a work of art, and I will evaluate his artistic decisions in light of whether or not they add up to a cohesive work of art. And no, they don't, because Snyder's style is at complete odds with the material he's adapting. I will give 300 and Watchmen credit that he, on some level, he connects with the material enough. Like, if Zack Snyder were to adapt The Dark Knight Returns, he would probably do a decent job of it because his own philosophies and his own filmmaking and his quote-unquote style line up with Frank Miller's original comic in a way that would actually create for cohesive art. This does not add up to cohesive art. This is all of the edgy, grimdark trends of the 90s and 2000s brought back in garish new life, like Superman's resurrected corpse. And every second of it is torture. I'm glad we've moved on from it. I'm glad DC has moved on from it and is making better movies. I can't wait for James Gunn's Suicide Squad. That's going to kick ass on all sorts of levels. There's a filmmaker who knows how to balance his style with the material he's adapting. I'm glad DC has moved on from it. I hope that with these new scandals, Snyder's fans will move on from it, and I am hoping that pop culture as a now that we have the dreaded Snyder cut, we can all move on as a culture and like do different new things, and I can move on with my life and never have to think about the 4 hours I spent in purgatory with this movie. So yes, I didn't care for it.
Well, shit. No, I don't really have anything else to say, but like, I don't know how to end this episode. Is like, yo.
And that, my friends, is it.
Yeah, but I really am glad to see that they got it off your chest. Like,
get it out there.
Yeah.
Mike dropped.
You know, yeah, Mike dropped.
That, my friends, is catharsis, and I think that is necessary. That is vibes.
Wow.
All my film theory.
See, you are the MVP of this episode right here.
Absolutely.
All my film theory friends have been telling me in film theory classes I'm too nice. I'm and I was like, you haven't heard me talk about Zack Snyder if you think that.
Yeah, well, play this for them. Play that rat for them. Right, you'll understand. But yes, folks, as you can see, yeah, this as I said in my review, written review, this is going to be one of the most it is already one of the most divisive superhero movies ever made. And it's funny that it's from Zack Snyder because his last two DCU films are also up there as, you know, some of the most divisive films in superhero film history, Dread. But you know, if you saw the film, feel free to let me know what you thought about it. If you loved it, hated it, thought it was meh, or whatever it is. But yeah, really and truly, I mean, we all said it. We're just glad that this is done. You know, I mean, we could wait patiently till August comes when we get the Suicide Squad. And just one last thing I just want to say though, I'm really glad that, you know, despite the L's, you know what I mean, made with BVS and to an extent to Justice League, right? Other filmmakers came in and added their 2 cents, if you will, their take on, you know, their respective the source material added to them basically. So yes, we've had BVS and yes, we've had Justice League, right? But we also had Aquaman. We also had, you know, Wonder Woman. We also had Birds of Prey.
Shazam.
You know? So, yeah, and Shazam as well. How can I forget Shazam? So yeah, I would say, you know what I mean, kind of keep my fingers crossed. There is a future for the DCEU. I could see it going places, but I have a feeling it's still the higher ups, the powers that be, are still gonna try to hold it back to what Snyder has established with Man of Steel, and things might get really problematic from there. But I just hope that with the other people that come in, they could at least kind of, you know, remove themselves from it entirely and just kind of continue on and let the DCEU truly flourish, right? It could be right up there, you know what I mean, alongside the MCU. But, you know, holding on to this vision, basically, I think it's going to be at the absolute detriment of the DCU as a whole, man.
Agreed.
Well, Matthew, if I could just jump over something that you have there with Walter coming in, Walter Hamada coming in, I feel like we might actually be able to get that, to be able to have that little bit of breath of fresh air and different styles. Because again, Sujihara and his people, like I always say, I put the blame for every of that on everything that has happened in the DC universe on their shoulders. But with Hamada coming in, I remember one of the reports that came out was that they came in and they saw like there was a bunch of scripts and there were a bunch of stories that were meant to happen with the DC universe, and it was poorly written and it was crap and things had to change, and Jeff Johns removed himself as creative, you know, officer and just stuck to producing. Jim Lee got promoted. So I feel that, and then after that Aquaman came in, because if I'm not mistaken, I think, and I could be wrong, but I think Walter Hamada was a producer on one of James Wan's films. So the idea of bringing James in, you know, like I feel like Hamada may actually bring in that breath of fresh air and that bit of balance that we need with DC moving forward.
Oh, yeah.
This is my hope.
Well, Hamada's big thing was, before this, He was a leading producer on the Conjuring movies and the Conjuring universe, which is why not only why we got James Wan for Aquaman, but that's also why we got David F. Sandberg for Shazam as well.
Right. Hey, this is Matthew Bailey, and I hope you've enjoyed this segment of the BS Beats and Bailey podcast. If you'd like to hear the full episode, hit up my link tree. On the other side of my head are 2 videos you can check out. Like this video if you like it, feel free to subscribe and hit the bell as well. Thanks for listening, and until the next one, take care, peace.